What advice would you give to the new advisor that is excited, but maybe puzzled on what to do or how to really succeed at the level that they want to?
Well, one of the things that I always tell people, I'm like the opposite of ADD, right? Like I focus on one thing and I stick with it. Like, I'm
That's
like that
amazing.
dog that yipper dog that's hanging on to your pant leg and won't let go. So, I mean, the presentation that eventually became the Power of Zero, I worked on that for almost 15 years, right?
Mm.
I kept honing and refining and evolving that presentation. And I would give it, every time I would give it, something would come out of my mouth a little bit different and people would respond in a positive way. So I was like, maybe I'm going to keep that, internalize it into the presentation.
What is up? Welcome back to the CA Power Player Podcast. I'm your host, Cody Askins, and today we have a guest that I had on months ago, but I've been wanting to bring him back because when I think about someone who has changed the game and is an industry legend in the retirement space, wrote a book, Power of Zero, over 400,000 copies sold. Also was recently on Fox Business talking to consumers around the world about this concept. And he is always helping advisors help their clients reach the 0% tax bracket. We recently did a webinar, record-breaking webinar, most registration we've had for a webinar in a very long time. And he crushed it with value, PowerPoint information. And so any chance to get a chance to hang with him, I love getting a chance to do it. So welcome back, Mr. David McKnight. How are you, sir?
Thanks, man. I'm great. Always an honor to be back with you. So looking forward to it.
Likewise. Well, I do know there's several questions I have. I want you to share your stories, some other content. Before we get there, one of the things I'm really excited about for our audience specifically is we've already had a bunch of our audience that is already committed to coming, is you're doing an event called Heroes of Zero. 4 experts, 1 goal, 0 tax in Nashville, Tennessee, May 16th and 17th. We'll put the link below for you guys that are joining us. You can go to ca.heroesofzero.live. Dylan will make sure to put the link below. But the lineup is crazy. And I think that's what I'm most excited about is like yourself, right? You could just do both days yourself, and that'd be one heck of a lineup. But you went ahead and added Ed Slott, Tom Hegna, Van Miller, who you called the MJ of life insurance, which I love. And really an amazing, incredible retirement experts from around the country that are coming to Nashville to all hang out with a couple days. Have y'all ever done something like this before? I don't think I've ever seen you guys all together at once.
No, the closest thing we did to something like this was last year when we did our first Heroes of Zero. I love the little, somebody asked us, how did we come up with that name, Heroes of Zero? Well, it was Ed Slott and me for 2 days. And Ed Slott's always been a hero of mine and a mentor of mine. He wrote the foreword for my book, The Power of Zero, and some other blurbs and things like that. And he and I are really 2 peas in a pod when it comes to tax-free retirement. Like, if you talk to Ed, you're basically going to get the same answer that I would give you. So Ed and I are really sort of on the same page when it comes to this stuff. And so he and I sort of headlined this event last year. And the tag for the event, it was Heroes of Zero was the title, but the tag was 2 experts, 1 goal, 0 tax. And really, that's the goal that we have for this retiring generation of baby boomers. 78 million baby boomers who are marching into a future where tax rates are likely to be dramatically higher than they are today. And really, we're running out of time. And so there's an urgency around this message. And you're right, I think it is historic. And the reason why I think it's historic is because Tom and Ed and Van and I have never been on the same stage at the same time. We've been, I've been at some events with Tom and some at Van, some at Ed, but never all of us in the same place. And so this is really exciting. It's historic. You're going to get strategy, cutting edge strategy that's urgent, that's going to help you take advantage of tax rates for your clients and prospects before tax rates go up for good. So it's really cutting edge stuff that really you're not going to get anywhere else.
Yeah. And really for the next several days, I don't know, depending on when you watch this may or not be true, but as of right now, you can also get 2 nights of hotel included, which actually the value of the hotel is even more than the cost of the ticket with the hotel, which is insane. And so that, like, specifically, like, you are doing some cool stuff when it comes to this, like, it's like a all-inclusive resort. You know what I mean? Like, I like going all inclusive. I can just do whatever I want. The same thing with this event, which is really cool. Before I transition to our next topic, like, how did this event come about? Like, why the event? You know, all 4 of you do really well. You don't have to do this.
Yeah, I mean, I think really the genesis of this is we did it with Ed Slott last year, but we wanted to do something different and special that had never been done before. We wanted to get all these great minds, and when I say great minds, I'm talking Tom Van and Ed. I'm not trying to sort of, but great minds, great strategies. And the reason, let me just talk about each of these guys. You talk about Van Miller being the MJ Michael Jordan of the life insurance industry. I don't think that I could really say that about anybody else that's alive at this point. He's 30 straight years of top of the table producer. I mean, you talk to that guy, how many appointments do you have in a typical week? He holds like 40 to 50 appointments in a week, which boggles my mind. I mean, everybody's trying to meet with this guy. So you're gonna hear from Van Miller. Ed Slott has been called by all of the major media outlets America's IRA expert. The Wall Street Journal says he is America's CPA. So you're going to be getting the very best. He's one of the CPAs out there that actually thinks that cash value life insurance is a good thing versus, what Dave Ramsey, Susie Orman, Clark Howard say. So here you have somebody that's qualified to actually opine on how cash value life insurance can help people. And then you've got Tom Hegna, who's sort of the industry leader in guaranteed lifetime income. And so you get somebody, they're all a little bit different, but they're very, very powerful in their own right. And you combine all of those on the same stage. We just wanted to do something unprecedented, historic, that's really going to make a lasting impression. And that's why we did it. Absolutely.
So if you guys are watching and you want to learn more about this event and get registered, they are definitely getting close to capacity as they have registrations coming every day. You can click the link below, go to ca.heroesofzero.live, and you can register. You can include a guest on your registration, and then you can come and hang out for a couple of days, May 16th, 17th in Nashville at the Renaissance Hotel. Also, David, the Power of Zero concept, where did that come from? I feel like that, and also, did you expect it to go as mainstream and viral as it has?
Yeah, so the genesis of that has all been a pretty interesting story. When I first got into the industry, Bill Clinton was appearing before the nation in the State of the Union, and he was painting a really rosy picture. He's like, look, we got budget surpluses into the future, 23 years of budget surpluses. So if one thing I've done while I've been in office, I've really put our country on this glide path that's unprecedented. Well, guess what? About 10 years later, David Walker, Comptroller General of the federal government at that time, basically stood before Congress and said, our country is like the Titanic and it's heading towards an iceberg. And it's just a question of time before our ship of state starts to sink. And what he was referring to is Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. We had about over $200 trillion of unfunded obligations for Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. And he basically said, look, we're not in a whole lot of trouble right now. It was only about $10 trillion back then. But he says, wait till you see where we're going to be by 2030. He was predicting back in 2010. This is before we had the $34 trillion of debt. He was predicting that effective tax rates in our country would have to double. So if your effective tax rate right now, including state, is about 22%, he says we're all going to be paying 45%, and that's going to happen by 2030. And if it doesn't happen by 2030, we are going to go broke as a country, which we can't really go broke. But what that means is massive recession, if not depression, skyrocketing interest rates, exploding debt, get to the point where we can't even afford to pay the interest on all that debt. So it's just going to be, he painted this really apocalyptic picture. And so that was the first time in my life, 2010, when I realized that we were really on dire straits as a country. And I thought, well, if David Walker is, he's basically sounding the alarm on higher taxes down the road, why are 95% of Americans saving the lion's share of their retirement in tax deferred vehicles like 401ks and IRAs. I mean, they're getting to tax deductions at historically low tax rates, only to postpone the payment of those taxes till some point in the future when tax rates are likely to be dramatically higher than they are today. And that just didn't add up for me. And so I had a presentation I developed over the years. I basically regurgitated that presentation onto the paper, onto the page. And I wrote the book in about 3 months. I called it 3 days, and I called it The Power of Zero. Threw it out on Amazon, crossed my fingers, hoped that people would buy it. And to my eternal amazement, people started to buy it, and I've been honored that they did. And like you said, it's sold 400,000 copies to date, and that still surprises me to this day. I'm honored that that's the case, and I think sparked a mini retirement revolution in terms of people trying to get to the 0% tax bracket. And the idea is, hey, if tax rates double and you're in the 0% tax bracket, then 2 times 0 is still 0. So that's the genesis of The Power of Zero, and that's sort of why I wrote the book.
That's amazing. And what, for those that maybe don't know your story, that are impressed and enjoying what they're hearing, take us back. Like, where do you come from? Who are you, and what brought you to become who you are today?
Yeah, so I graduated from BYU in 1997, and I wanted to go to international business school, and they said, hey, we'd love to have you, but you have to have 2 years worth of experience before you do that. So I said, okay, well, who's willing to hire me? And so I actually started with MetLife Financial Services as just a way to get some experience before I went to business school, and I sort of got hooked on the industry. And here we are, 25 years later, 27 years later almost. And I'm still in the industry. It's the only thing I've ever done, right? It's the only thing I've ever done. I've only ever been a financial advisor post college. And so I still meet with clients. I met with clients for 25 years full time. Now I'm doing a lot of writing, a lot of speaking, and got this organization of 250 certified Power of Zero advisors across the country. So I'm managing that as well. So it's just, I got my hands full, but it all started, if you have listeners say, hey, look, I'm only at the beginning. How do I get to where Dave is? Well, guess what? At one point in time, I was where you are. And so you just keep chipping away, putting one foot in front of the other. And I think eventually you do great things if you stick with it long enough.
Yeah, you do. And it's amazing. A lot of times too, like, and you know what? I'm kind of curious to this, because most agents and advisors, like, they are always like, they look in the mirror and they're just like always doubting themselves, and they have good days and they have bad days. And it's like, being an entrepreneur and being an advisor and agent, it's not easy. It's very difficult. Every day's a new day. What advice would you give to the new advisor that is excited, but maybe puzzled on what to do or how to really succeed at the level that they want to?
Well, one of the things that I always tell people, I'm like the opposite of ADD, right? Like I focus on one thing and I stick with it. Like, I'm like that dog that yipper dog that's hanging onto your pant leg and won't let go. So, I mean, the presentation that eventually became The Power of Zero, I worked on that for almost 15 years, right? I kept honing and refining and evolving that presentation. And I would give it, every time I would give it, something would come out of my mouth a little bit different, and people would respond in a positive way. So I was like, maybe I'm going to keep that, internalize it into the presentation, to the point where after about 15 years, I had this field tested presentation where every single word in there was there for a reason, and the whole presentation was choreographed, and it was just perfect because I had field tested it for 15 years. And so advisors come to me and they say, can I make this my own? Can I put my own words in there? And I'm like, I don't know why you would want to. Just do it like the presentation is written, and you're going to have success, because it's all about words. So one of the things that I would say that helped me be successful is don't keep bouncing around from this to that, and I'm going to try this and I'm going to try that, and you're like the ADHD advisor where it's a different thing every year. I've known very talented financial advisors and life insurance agents over the years that they sort of they have that ADHD mentality where they're doing one thing one year and then they shift to another thing the next year, and they just can't string together. They got you've heard that whole thing. You have 20 years in the business, or you can have 1 year of experience 20 times. Hey, have 20 years in the business consecutively, where you're sharpening the saw, you're getting better, you're sticking with it, you're grinding it out, and you're getting better. And I think that's one of the things that's really made me successful over the years is that presentation that I worked on, I kept working on. I didn't abandon it. I kept working on it. People are like, Dave, this seems like the presentation you gave 6 years ago, only better. Right? Like, yeah, because I keep on improving. So that's what I would say. If you can find a presentation, and by the way, we're going to be making all this available when you come to this conference in Nashville. But if you can find a mentor that can bend the learning curve in your favor, give you the right words, so that you can say them in the right order, at the right time, to the right people. Guess what? That's most of the battle, right? Saying the right words in the right order at the right time to the right people. That is most of the battle. But guess what? Once you find the right words, stick with it and keep doing it and keep practicing and honing and refining and getting to the point where you own those words and they become part of you. I see too many people that come up to me at the end of my presentations and they say, Dave, you really inspired me today. I want to do exactly what you do. And I say, great. And they'll say, well, what do I need to do? I say, well, read the Power Zero, come to a boot camp, do this, do that. And you know what? I never hear from them ever again, So it's find someone that can inspire you, find someone who can lead you, find someone who can mentor you, find someone who can give you the right words so that you don't have to go through what I did for 25 years. And take those words, make them your own, practice them until you own them, and then go out and get the work done. And there's too few people in the world that want to do that. But if you are willing to do it, man, nobody can stop you.
So true. Yeah. I love too that, because you're right. You described so many agents, and you described my personality style as well, really well. It's so easy to, like shiny object syndrome, always seeing a different squirrel in a different spot all the time, and like shifting everything. It's amazing to me that it's like, no, dude, I committed and I actually executed and followed through on this for 15 years, and now we're sharing it. It's like, dude, what kind of value is in you doing something for 15 years, mastering it and working on one presentation and literal words in different spots, and then sharing that with the world and making it available for anyone to use? Like, goodness gracious, that concept to others is priceless. But I think the cool lesson is a couple things. One, you need to become a master. Like, if you're going to do this thing, do it well so that you actually take care of your clients in the right way, which you and your organization, Larry, all the people that you work with, do a phenomenal job of. And even the additional lesson is find a mentor who can literally shortcut the process to success. Not that you're going to have to work less, not that you're going to have to not do the work, but that they can actually point you in the right direction so that the work you do is actually the work that you should be doing. Because figuring out where the words should go in presentations, in this example, it's already been done.
Right. Yeah. I tell people, look, you let's say you're trying to woo your girlfriend. You're like, I'm gonna read her some Shakespeare. And then you get to the point where you're gonna quote the Shakespeare and you paraphrase it into your own words, right? Like, how effective is that going to be? I mean, all of the benefit of the order in which Shakespeare had laid out those words, it all goes out the window because you decided to paraphrase it into your own words. And so that's, like I say, look, I'm no Shakespeare. But I will tell you this, that when it comes to saying the right words in the right order to the right people at the right time, I have figured out a few things over the years. And so if I were to give you my presentation, or a mentor, or Cody were to give you his presentation, the last thing you would want to do is go try to reinvent that presentation, or quote unquote, I hear this all the time, I want to make it my own, Dave. I want to make it my own. And make it my own is code for, I want to rearrange all those special words that I worked so hard to put in the right order over the years. I want to take those words, I want to rearrange them so that they're going to work in the way that I think they're going to work. Well, guess what? As you know, Cody, in this industry, your natural impulses are almost always wrong, right? They're almost always 180 degrees wrong. So rely on mentors who have figured these things out, who have done all the heavy lifting, who have taken all the arrows for you, and do what they tell you has been successful for them. And I think that's a huge thing that people miss out on. And I think that's one of the reasons why this conference is going to be so historic and so beneficial, is because you've got all these people that have, Tom Hegna been at it for over 40 years. You listen to Tom and the words that come out of his mouth when he presents. I asked Tom I said, Tom, how did you put those words together in the right way? He goes, Dave, I've been doing this for so long. You just get up there and you start talking and something works. And you're like, I'm going to do it again the next time to see if it works with the next group of people it does. You're like, that's going in my presentation. So it's trial and error, but you can't, Malcolm Gladwell says you got to do something 10,000 times to become an expert in it. Well, you look at the people that are going to be on that stage, they have been practicing the words that they use for 10,000 hours. Did I say 10,000 times? 10,000 hours. So you got to do it 10,000 hours. And if somebody does it 10,000 hours, becomes an expert, and then says, here, take it, I want you to utilize it. If you utilize it, you will be successful. I think you'd be a fool not to take it.
No doubt about it. Yeah. And I'll get the question of like, how do I find the right mentor? And a lot of times it's showing up, it's getting in the room, and when you hear someone like a David McKnight and you're like, dude, I love this dude he really understands retirement. And if you're wanting to learn the retirement game, then you need to be in front of people that can help you understand it. And I think that's the biggest way, is like, it's cool to watch stuff online, which is great, but when you have a chance to meet someone and be in a room, there's less distractions, it's a whole, you're focused, you get ideas, stuff just starts to flow. And then you meet in cool relationships and stuff, like, you guys are doing a dinner and different stuff. Like, you never know what's going to happen. You just never know.
And then you get to rub elbows with people who, for example, have been in my organization for years and years and years. And you say, hey, Brian, you've been following Dave's stuff for 10 years. How has it changed your life? How has it raised your game? How are you able to now interact with clients? And they'll be able to tell you. And that's the great thing. People that have been following Tom Hegna, Ed Slott, they can tell you, look, this stuff works. I've utilized it with my own clients, and I've done it over this period of years. So, if someone inspires you and you feel like they can lead you, and you feel moved by the words that they use when you listen to them. I remember the first time I ever listened to Tom Hegna. Tom Hegna actually inspired me to write The Power Zero, because I was sitting in a meeting where he was speaking, and I was so moved by the combination of words that he used. And at the end of the meeting, he says, oh, by the way, if you wish your client had been here in this room listening to what I had to say, but they weren't able to be here for obvious reasons, guess what? I've got my book called, Paychecks and Playchecks sitting in the back of the room. That is the book version of this presentation, and you can get it for just $19.99 or whatever. So I thought to myself, hey, I've been working on this presentation for 15 years, and the only people that benefit from it are the people that are in the room that hear me. And so I resolved right then and there, and I told Tom this. I said, Tom, you're responsible for The Power Zero because you inspired me to write that book. And I committed that entire presentation to paper. So the long and the short of it, Cody, is that Tom is a hero of mine. He inspired me. I sat in the room and I listened to him. And I said, this is a guy that I want to be like. This is a guy who's laid out a pattern that I want to follow. So find out who the mentors are in the industry that you want to follow, that you want to pattern your practice after, whose language inspires you. And then, and I think this conference is a great opportunity to listen to 4 people that I think may have the ability to have that same impact on you.
100%. Yes. And as far as like financial products, right? Y'all are helping clients with, annuities and some assets under management and IULs and like, different financial products, right? To help them in retirement. The stat of like the amount of baby boomers was staggering, 78 million. Like that's unbelievable. I didn't even realize it was that big. As far as, and like an advisor thinking through the presentation, obviously you're going to be going through that and a ton of other information at the conference. I would love to leave them with one thing, like as far as like, is there one part of the presentation that's like your favorite part? Was there one aha moment when you were building this thing over decades where you were like, oh, that was really freaking good? Like, is there anything that comes to mind regarding the presentation specifically?
You're talking about the presentation that I developed over all those years?
Yes.
Yeah. There's one part of my presentation where I say, people always ask the question, Dave, they'll say, Dave, how come I've never heard of this stuff before? And I say, one of the reasons why you maybe haven't heard of this stuff before is you have to ask yourself how most major money management institutions make money. How do most major money management institutions make money? They charge you a fee. Let's call it 1%. So let's say they're managing $1 million of your dollars in the tax deferred bucket, the form of an IRA, and they're charging you 1% per year. How much are they making off you per year? Maybe $10,000. No big deal. That's how a lot of financial advisors get paid, including me. But here's the rub. If they were to persuade you the tax rates in the future are likely to be dramatically higher than they are today, then you might just feel impressed to shift that money to tax-free. And if you shift it to tax-free, what are you going to have to pay along the way? Taxes. Let's call it 30%. So you pay 30% tax on that $1 million IRA. They're now managing $700,000 of your dollars in the tax-free bucket. If they're still charging you 1%, now they're only making $7,000 per year off you. Didn't they just experience a pay cut for persuading you the tax rates in the future are likely to be dramatically higher than they are today? And for that reason alone, most major money management institutions don't want to touch this conversation with a 10-foot pole. Me personally, I don't care how much money you have. The only thing that matters to me is how much you actually get to spend after tax. That is the only number that really matters. That is that I see more aha moments. I see more, eyes go like that at that point in my presentation, because they realize, and I challenge people, I say, hey, look, go Google Ken Fisher and Roth conversion and see what comes up. I guarantee you will only see one mention in all of cyberspace. And to get that mention, it's behind a paywall. You got to go, not a paywall, real paywall, but you got to go give your address and phone number to Ken Fisher, and he sends you a little booklet called 99 Pieces of Retirement Advice or something like that. And number 92 is you may want to think about a Roth conversion. That's the only mention in cyberspace. I just had another, somebody mentioned on my YouTube channel, made a comment, one of the most insightful comments I've ever seen. He goes, I was with Ken Fisher for 3 years. He said they never once mentioned Roth conversion. I didn't even know what a Roth conversion was because they never explained it to me. So, here's the point. There's follow the money trail. Money managers are not interested in explaining to America that tax rates in the future are likely to be dramatically higher than they are today because they make less money. They don't get paid on the money you send off to the IRS. They only get paid on the money that stays in-house. And I think that's probably the moment of truth during my presentation when the light bulb goes on for a lot of different people.
That's amazing. Yeah, that makes perfect sense too. And it's easy to understand no matter how much they know about the process. They don't have to be a retirement expert advisor to like understand the math behind that. Yeah, I love that you broke it down so simply. And I've noticed that is a skill of yours. That's a skill of Tom's, right? Ed, Van, etc. I am guessing at Heroes of Zero, because there's going to be some new advisors that are like, hey, I want to master this game. I want to understand it. But I'm not an expert yet. Do I have to be an advanced level to come in and understand the information? Or at Heroes of Zero, am I going to get a insane education at a level that I can understand? I think that's probably going to be a question that comes up.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. People have to remember that really one of my strong suits is taking something that's complex and making it simple. I don't profess to be the smartest guy in the world. However, one of the things that I'm really good at is taking something complex and making it simple so that people like me and other people that are like me, that think like me, can understand it in a way that makes sense to them. And I think that that's something that all four of us have in common, is taking what could normally be a very complex topic and distilling it down into its main principal kernels of truth that are easily digestible from someone who is just, brand new in the industry. Maybe they're a consumer, maybe they're, a multi-year top of the table producer. And everybody in between can understand the types of concepts that we're talking about, because we've learned over the years to distill those concepts down into sort of easily digestible parts.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm extremely excited for the event. I know we've had a lot of positive feedback. What would you say that you are looking forward to the most from these couple days in Nashville with an amazing audience and some of your mentors and friends in the industry? What do you think is your?
Honestly, I love talking to people that say, "Hey, Dave, I was doing $30,000 worth of life insurance production. Then I stumbled across the power of zero. I started handing that out to my clients. And last year I did 300,000 or whatever." I don't say that to be braggadocious. I say it that I'm inspired and, honored to have been able to help people. I just love hearing those types of stories. I love hearing that the power of zero message has touched not just the lives of advisors, but the lives of their clients as well. So it's just being able to hear the stories about how these concepts have really revolutionized the way people think about retirement planning. And of course, you get to spend a couple of days with Tom Hegna and Van Miller and Ed Slott, some of the greatest retirement minds on the planet. And it's just a great opportunity to be a sponge and just soak up everything. Because I learn new stuff all the time when I'm listening to those guys, because those guys are all at the top of their fields, and you can't help but learn stuff when you're spending time with them.
100%. Well, I'm looking forward to the event, and I appreciate you sharing today. If they want to learn more about the conference, we'll put a link below. Any final thoughts you'd love to add before we wrap up today's interview?
Yeah, we don't know how many more of these we're putting on. This may be the last opportunity to have all four of us in the same room. So it's historic, but there's no guarantees it'll happen again. So again, grab a spot while they're still available, and we look forward to seeing all you guys in Nashville.
I love it, buddy. Thank you for being on the podcast. Appreciate all you do, and we will see you very soon.
Likewise. Thanks, my friend.
Yep. Thank you, sir. Okay. Thank you guys for listening. If you're enjoying the podcast and you're like, "Man, dude, I like this. I like David McKnight. I like what he's sharing. These other guests sound amazing, right? I want to be a part of this thing." You can click the link below to learn more about Heroes of Zero. It's ca.heroesofzero.live. We'll make sure Dylan puts the link in the description. As you are going through this, you will notice that there's 14 hours of education. All the meals are included. Up until a certain date, hotel is included. You can add a guest at a reduced rate, like a really impressive overall event. So I want to encourage and implore you, if you're looking to master the retirement game and truly be an expert and help the most amount of people the right way, there's not a better event with better people that you could understand and become a master of this concept. And so I appreciate you hanging out with us on the podcast. If hopefully you get a chance to go to Nashville May 16th to 17th. Either way, thanks for hanging with David McKnight and have an amazing rest of your day. Adios. Hey, if you enjoyed this, I got another one you're going to love. It's right there. Click on it. See you in there. I'm so excited for today's CA Power Player podcast. I'm your host, Cody Askins. We got a special guest. He is back on the channel talking about how to sell life insurance from home. Here's what I love about this person. Okay, I'm telling you, this will be one of the best.